I was asked about doing videos about tools and equipment, and one question came up about welders. Which welders what's the welder that I use? Well, I actually have two, because if you can see, I'll do an insert around here somewhere. I did a Ford, and I was welding some new rocker panels or sills on it, and it was extremely thin metal. The new sills were thin, and there wasn't really much to weld to. I didn't really want to do the job, but I used this welder for that. And because this one is just a 100 amp welder, so it's peak amperage, it's putting out 100 amps. The newer models go up to like a 120 or something like that. But I bought this to do Land Rover chassis, and I had to use it on full blast all the time, and I could only use it on short spurts, if you see what I mean, because the duty cycle goes down dramatically in welders, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But why do I have two welders? Well, this one, if we look at the wiring inside, the wire is on a spool, and it's 0.6 of a millimetre. It's the smallest wire you can get. But when I tried to put 0.8 wire in, it would keep tripping the breaker, because the breaker wasn't strong enough. Like the fuse kept in the main panel kept blowing because the current draw was too much for 110. I had welded Land Rover chassis, like I say. You know, when you're doing a 90 degree, I'd always put 3 runs of weld on, a fillet right down the middle, and then 2 either side. I never broke a weld yet, and it was good for welding engine mounts on. But it was slow. That was the problem. It was so slow, it was unbelievable. But it's kind of handy, and it's kind of nippy. You can get into little places with it, and it's portable. That's the nice thing too. But like I said, this one's on 0.6 wire. So at the front, you've got your power control, 1 to 4, and then this is your wire speed up here. Now, it is possible to weld aluminium with this, but you need to put a Teflon liner inside here, and you need your line perfectly straight, and it is so frustrating to do that I just give up. You need what's called if you're going to use MIG welder, you really need a gun with a spool on it, so you can do it, because then you've got a very short length going through the tip of your gun, rather than this, which is about 7 foot long. It buckles up, so I try not to use it. In fact, I avoid using aluminium welding as much as possible. We can do it on the 221. We had a bit of success with that. That was good, but again, we needed a special lead to go onto the welder. Now, like I said, this is an American one. It's 100 amp, but it's rated for 88 amp at 20% duty cycle. What that means is, when you start to weld, the output from the welder will go down gradually, and then it'll sort of level off to where it's happy. So if you say it's a bit sort of tricky really when they say it's 100 amp, because it isn't really. It's only 100 amp for the first minute or so, then it drops down, and that's why you struggle with it. But for car bodywork, it was perfect. You didn't need anything else. It was really good. But for doing Land Rover chassis, we needed something better. So let's have a look at that. This is a Clark 230 TE welder that I picked up for £100 in England, and I brought it across to Canada because it was cheap as chips. And the Clark welders, you know, if you pay a little bit of money for them, I mean, this would have been quite expensive, brand new, but they're quite well made. And one of the things about welders when you're looking for something, I mean, it is a bit technical, but the really cheap welders have got aluminium transformers in, where the ones that are a bit more expensive, like this one and the Lincoln, have got copper transformers in. It makes a big difference. Well, I suppose it doesn't make a difference. I don't know, but I found it makes a big difference. Now this one here, of course, because it comes from Europe, it's got the European lead on it, so we can change that for a different lead quite easily. So we could put an aluminium type of feeder on here with a spool on gun, and it worked perfectly. But like I said, this one here is on 0.8 wire, whereas the small one's on 0.6. This will weld all day, every day, Land Rover chassis, no problems at all. Now it has got some features on that you will never use, like a spot timer down here. When I first got this, I didn't realise that the button was out of sync with the gauge, and I had it round here a little bit, and well, the button was pointing down this way, but it wasn't switched off, and what was happening was it was got weld a little bit and then cut out, weld a bit and then cut out. I didn't realise it was the timer that was on because the button was showing it was switched off. So I leave it permanently switched off, it doesn't do anything. Wire speed, very fine control. I would have liked something with a bit more of a resistance, so that 10 is its maximum. Sometimes when you were doing welding, we for Land Rover chassis, we scratched on the side of here where the pointer should be, because if it's this, like this is how fine it has to be, a little bit like this is a big difference between a good weld, you know, like something that's burning all the way through, a good weld, or a weld that's sparkly and splattery. You know, you need to practice a little bit. Good little welder. Oh, even the ground, you can take the ground off, so that's good. And talking of the ground, on this one I did a bit of an experiment with it, and I took the clamp off and I put a mag mount on. Big mistake, because look at all the filings and stuff that sticks to it, so you've got to get all that lot off before you weld, because what this will do is it'll prevent you getting a good ground. Oh, it's a pain. I actually blow it off with the airline. I thought it would be a good idea, but anyway it won't. When I got this welder, there was a few problems with it, but one of the problems was that somebody had driven over this with a forklift or some heavy truck and nipped the line, because even when I rectified the speed control here, the wire wasn't coming out good. So I traced it to that to the line, and I think it was about, I don't know, it was about 40-50 quid or something like that for a new lead, and put that on, and it's been perfect ever since. The other modification I did to it, probably not supposed to do this. This is a North American 220 plug socket, and what I did was I piggybacked the lead here and put a socket at the back, so that meant I could carry my plasma cutter on the top, which is also a 220, plug it into there, so if I was outside in the yard and I was cutting, I didn't have to run backwards or forwards or unplug something and plug it back in. So that's really handy to have. And if you see here, these little stubs, well, instead of having the pipe going straight to the, you know, like to the bottle that's on the back of here, I actually have over here in the corner, let's have a zoom in, wait a minute, I have up there the bottle fastened to the wall, and I have some of this plastic piping that I join together with these connectors, these pull connectors. So just one of these little connectors, and I have them all over the shop, and I've got airline fittings on the other end that come out of the wall, but a different size airline fitting to my regular shop air tools, so nobody's going to plug them in and use like argon for power tools. So that's about it really. That's this thing will weld all day, no problem at all for Land Rover chassis. Very quick, very easy, and very versatile. I really like this one. It's one of the best welders I've ever had, and like I say, for the price it was being good. I'd highly recommend these if you can still get them. But it's had a lot of service, it's done a lot of welding, believe me. So that's about it in a nutshell. That's the stuff that I use. I haven't got a stick welder. Well, I have one, but it's not here, but I never really need it because this does everything I want. Yeah, I think that's about it for welding. Gas welding, never used gas welding for years and years and years. Never used it. There's no need, you know, today. I mean, maybe a bit of brazing, but you know, I don't really do that type of thing. So it's quite difficult to think. I do have my my bottles here. You know, this is my oxyacetylene type thing, but it actually isn't acetylene. It's propane. I cut with propane because it's cheaper, and it, you know, for doing cutting. Damn, a little barbecue bottle lasts me months and months and months. So that's not a problem. But I don't do gas welding. I haven't got a TIG welder. I'd like one, but I can't justify it. That's the problem. I can't justify a TIG welder. I don't do that type of work. But then again, on the other hand, if I had a TIG welder, then I could do that type of work, like making pipes and things like this, and exhausts or something a bit more fancy. But you know, when doing Land Rovers, a lot of the times you've got to think like, well, are you going to TIG weld a manifold up or going to buy one? I'm just going to buy one. Cheap enough, or find a used one. Sometimes repairs aren't really worth it. So there we go. That's how I join metals together. Alright, we'll talk to you later. Bye.